Hey, what's going on, everybody? Michael with the Real 1% podcast back at you guys and girls with another episode here. Today is your day if you're looking to get into Google. We got my man John here. We're going to get into the details later, but he is a veteran as well. He's started off in the Air Force. He made the smart choice of being a firefighter in the Air Force. But for some reason, man, he changed to the Army to become an infantryman. I don't know why he did it, but we got to get into that and see what was going on. He actually shared this with me before we went on, in the like when we're talking on LinkedIn, he said that he dealt with depression, alcohol abuse, suicide ideations, which is all too familiar for veterans leaving the military. It doesn't matter what service that you served in, that's something that we all deal with, even myself included. And there should be no shame for you to talk about it. But he got over it, and now he's doing much bigger and better things. And like I said, he actually helps lead the Skill Bridge program at Google. So, John, without further ado, I wanted to say thank you for being here. And how's your day going?
I appreciate it, Michael. Thanks for having me on. Everything's going great on my side. I'm happy to dive into my story. I guess it is kind of it doesn't really necessarily have like a linear progression, especially going from the military into tech, coming from like a non-tech background. So I'm happy to go into all of that stuff and kind of tools and techniques that I use to kind of make that transition. And then, of course, the adjustment that happened immediately after the military and kind of getting that eventual feel and kind of feeling out what that transition is and everything that it entails. So yeah,
Absolutely.
happy to go into that story. I mean, there's a ton of ways that we could take it, and we'll just kind of go as we go and see where it leads to.
All right, let's get it, man. Appreciate you being so vulnerable and open, and can't wait to hear what you got in store for everybody listening. So, where are you from, first and foremost, and what made you join the Air Force?
Yeah, absolutely. So, grew up in Michigan, just outside of Detroit. It's kind of funny because all my family's like from like a 10-mile radius, and it's still kind of that way, except for right now. So, I'm located in Austin, Texas. Moved down here for a job outside of Google initially, but Austin was always kind of like a cool area, and the military kind of introduced me that with Fort Hood or now Fort Cavazos in the
Okay.
area. But yeah, I grew up in Michigan, come from a military background. So grandfather, a lot of my aunts and uncles, mom and dad were both or all in the military. And so for me, it was kind of always in the back of my head that that was kind of the pathway I would take. And it wasn't necessarily like the single pathway I had to pursue. So like I did well in high school and all of that. But always having the military in the back of my head and coming from that background, I always knew it was probably something or that's where I would end up. And so as everyone else was submitting their college applications, that's when I kind of started looking at the different branches of service. It's kind of funny. Initially, I was really focused on the Marines at first, just because especially as a young kid, you see their uniforms and stuff like that, and even from the Air Force and Army, like I still agree that they have the best uniforms. So that kind of initially that attracted me initially. I was like, okay, I'm going to go join the Marines. So I go to the MEPS or not the MEPS office, but the recruiting office, meet with the recruiter, and they're like, yeah, we'll pick you up after school and we'll kind of talk about it a little bit more and kind of see what you're interested in. So it's like, all right. So I'm sitting there on my front porch, kind of waiting for the recruiter to come up, and I'm waiting and waiting. 30 minutes go by, half or 45 minutes, an hour, and they don't show up. So I'm like, especially if you're trying to join for at least 4 years, like this isn't the best initial impression that I got from them.
Right.
So I didn't really hear back from them. I didn't really take that initiative just because that was the initial like bad taste in my mouth initially of that. So that okay. Well, everyone told me not to join the army. Like my mom was in the army, so my aunts were. So like, yeah, don't join the army. Like Air Force or Navy is probably your best bet. So I was like, I don't want to be on a boat. I don't want anything to really do with water. So like Air Force sounds pretty good. So started looking into that. Um, and they give you 5 options. I'm not sure about the other branches, but within the Air Force, like as you're joining, like, okay, what are 5 potential jobs that you would want to have? And so I listed 4. I think I had 4 on there, and then firefighting was the 5th one. I was just like, I had never considered it before, but I was like, well, it sounds interesting. Like I like doing physical things and staying active, so yeah, why not go with that? And yeah, that's what I got was that 5th choice, which is kind of funny because I had security forces or MPs above that, which is normally like, if you get that's kind of a last option for some people. And I was kind of surprised that having that above firefighting, that I wasn't kind of put in that are selected for that path, which I'm okay with now. But yeah, started in firefighting and then kind of went from there.
What was your first option? What was your number one pick?
So first one was pararescue, which
Okay.
I'm glad.
Is that PJs?
Yeah, PJ. So
Okay.
I'm glad I didn't do it now because I mean it's kind of like I like that kind of exclusivity of it of being something elite. But at the same time, like YouTube wasn't around. Like this is back in like 2004, 2003. So like YouTube wasn't really a thing. And so there wasn't a lot of like background information I could kind of gather from it. I was like, okay, they look like they do cool stuff. That's what I'll do. But like I could swim, but I'm not like, I'm tired after like 2 laps in the pool. And that's like a big part of their selection process. Um, and so yeah, I think I definitely would have washed out of their course had I gone like the PJ route. So I'm guessing it all worked out in the end.
I'm surprised you didn't get like security forces too, because I've been to some Air Force bases as a contractor, and dude, the whole brunt of the Air Force security forces. It seems like that or services or they got what's that CE or Red
Mhm.
Horse or the Red Hats. But yeah, so being a firefighter in the Air Force, how was it for you? Did you like your time in or?
Yeah, so I mean, it was definitely exciting. The thing I like about it is you go from like 0 to 100 like in a second. Like regardless of if it's 2 in the afternoon or if it's 2 in the morning, like once a call drops, like you go from doing whatever you're doing, like you drop all of that, and then everything is just focused on the call or response you're going to. So you're not thinking about what's going on at home, like what was on TV, what you're doing tomorrow. It's just that super focus on what's happening like in the present. And
Right.
so aside from that, um, just like all the cool scenarios. So they call it our firefighting, which is aircraft rescue firefighting. So you're necessarily you go into like structure calls for fires and vehicle accidents and medical calls and stuff like that. But at the same time, most Air Force bases are attached to a flight line, and so all the aircraft coming in, you're also responsible for any in-flight or ground emergencies that come in. So that was one of the cool things, especially I get to my first duty station. I just turned 19, and you're there just right up next to F-16s and A-10s and all the different heavy aircraft that there are. But just being that close to it and having that hands-on experience was something that a lot of people don't get to experience. Was definitely something that was pretty cool.
Where was your first duty station?
First station was Germany, which was
Oh, damn.
cool because yeah, drinking age there was 18 for military members. So
Yeah, you're right.
unlike Yeah. So definitely got exposed to a lot of good German food and German beer straight out of high school, really. So I mean, it was a great experience. I haven't been back to Europe since, but I definitely want to go back. It's just an awesome location, that entire continent.
Ramstein.
Spangdahlem. So it's
Okay, cool.
yeah, the smaller one. It's a little bit rural, about hour and a half, 2 hours from Ramstein.
No, that's cool. I was in Vilseck, so the army
Okay.
don't get the best duty stations, but you're still in Germany. Doesn't matter. You get the train station right next to the base. You get on that thing, you go to Nuremberg, and then from there you go to Frankfurt. You go anywhere. You go out of the country. But like you said, man, Germany's amazing, dude. Like, I mean, whether it's the atmosphere, the party, the culture, the Christmas markets, the close access to all the other countries in Europe, and the cheap airfare or train tickets, the rail pass. If you're over there, or you're thinking about joining the military, take advantage of it, man. You don't know what you're really missing. Like gentleman Leslie said the other day, I had him on the podcast, and he was in Portugal and Germany too. He said you don't really know what life's like until you sort of leave the United States, man. There's so much stuff out there, and it seems like you took full advantage of it. Did you like traveling and doing stuff, or I didn't seem like you're the one to just sit in the barracks and play video games like some people do, which is fine, but at the same time, get out and experience it, man. Get your passport stamped up. Just embrace yourself with the culture. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for most people, it's almost like that once in a lifetime experience if you don't end up going back. And all of the benefits that you mentioned, so whether it's the travel, um, all the different things that you can see in all of the cities. I mean, for me, it's almost like stateside, like just going state to state. Like if I
Yeah,
travel outside of Texas, to Oklahoma or whatever, same thing there. But you're going from Germany to France or Germany to Luxembourg or Belgium. It's just that they're so
right.
close together. And you get to experience all those different cultures and scenes in all of the different countries. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, the tough thing for me was with the fire department, we worked in shifts, so it wasn't necessarily like a Monday through Friday type thing. Um, we're working 24-hour shifts, so pretty much every day you're either coming to the fire station or you're leaving. Which, aside from that, there's you get a 3-day break every 2 weeks, so that kind of made up for it. But it made it hard to kind of coordinate travel, especially the fire department's a close knit community, so most of your friends and people that you hang out with are also in the fire department working the same types of shifts. So trying to coordinate like a weekend trip was always challenging. You'd have to take leave if that was something you wanted to do. But yeah, got to experience a lot of the different countries. I mean, went to Paris for one of our midweek trips, and again, it's just like going state to state, but just country to country over there. So it was great to see a lot of that. Um, I'm glad I got to experience it firsthand at an early age. So I know that this is something I definitely want to go back to and experience again with my family members.
Absolutely, dude. You can't go wrong over there. Um, that's hard, dude. 24 hours on, 24 hours off. It's like being on staff duty or CQ, just nonstop, dude. But like, at least you get the 3 days. I bet you guys were looking forward to it because that's draining, dude. As soon as you get off 24-hour duty, even though, I mean, you still probably got to be, you could probably sleep and stuff, but, or can you, you could sleep when you're on duty, like when you're at the firehouse, stuff like that, like civilian fire or house, or how's that go?
Yeah, so it was like the old
Okay.
school fire department. So you had the vehicle bay where we store or park all our vehicles. You had those below, and then 2 stories up, you had our bunk rooms or where everyone slept right above that. So, you get a call in the middle of the night, you had the fire poles right there. So you just go down 2 floors on a fire pole, which is kind of nerve wracking the first time going through that or like going down an actual fire pole, especially when it's like 20, 30 feet below you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, living quarters, like you have bunks there, you have kind of a room to watch TV in, you have a weight room and a cardio room. So all of the, I guess, like luxuries of everyday living, but you're kind of just secluded to that fire station unless you go out on any calls and stuff like that.
So did you guys cook for yourself too?
Yeah, a lot of stations do like shift cooks,
Yeah.
like cooking as a shift where one person or a few people chip in. I mean, everyone just kind of pools their money in, $5 here or there. Everyone they go out and get the groceries, and then you always tend to have a few people that like cooking, so they kind of like take charge. But yeah, you do shift dinners and stuff like that. So it just
That's
kind of
cool.
like builds that camaraderie and that kind of close knit relationship with the coworkers because especially like in an office job now, I'm not necessarily eating with the people I'm working with 24 hours a day type thing. So
Right.
it just really helps in building that teamwork. I mean, especially in a profession where you need to trust and rely on other people, essentially putting your life in their hands if it comes to that, of just building that trust and that teamwork. And it's kind of built up through those foundations of just the everyday living so that you kind of get to know and understand each other, your strengths and weaknesses. Definitely helps in building that camaraderie.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious because in the military, we get the defects and everything like that. So I didn't know if they would like try to send you guys chow or have someone go get it, but that's kind of cool. You get to do the whole thing. I mean, did you guys like get everyone gets separate rats? Like everyone gets money if you're a firefighter, then even if you're like a single soldier, or how does that work? Or they just pay out of pocket? I guess I don't know if you know the answer to that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure what it's like now. I know back when I was doing it, like they took BAS, like they gave us BAS, but they also like took it out. It was like a weird conundrum. Uh, yeah, I don't know the rationale behind it, but yeah, a lot of the stuff like we didn't have time to necessarily go to the DFAC, especially if
Right.
you know, it's a good mix between single people and people that are married with families, and so if you're on a crew with 3 other people, half of them are married. They don't want to go over to the DFAC for you to eat
Absolutely
two or
not,
three
dude.
times a day. So yeah, most people it's made it super easy, like low traction. Just bring your food there and cook it, or like before, just doing like a shift dinner.
That's cool. What was a two-part question? What was the best meal that you had there at the firehouse that you can remember? And then what's the craziest call that you had to take at the firehouse?
Yeah, so best meal is definitely in Germany. So we worked with so we had active duty military firefighters, and then you also had German civilians that work. So they're like a federal civilian working on the base. Um, but of course, like with them, like they have all of that like insider knowledge of German cooking and stuff like that. So them just cooking like bratwurst or
Mm,
spatzel, whatever it may be, just the best, absolute best German food you ever get. So just having them cook a dinner, you always knew it was going to be something good. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
bratwurst is always a top for me. And then craziest call. Um, so we were doing, it was our off day. In the old base housing, they're going to tear down, but we were like, okay, you're going to tear it down anyways. Like, let's go do some training, because it seems like every firefighter like is almost like a pyromaniac. Like you enjoy, like you fight what you enjoy, kind of thing. And so our leadership had gone to the base command or whoever it may have been. It was like, okay, like this is an opportunity for us to provide training for our guys. Like, we call it live burns, where you essentially like put actual stuff on fire. You go in there and just practice putting it out, type thing. And they were like, well, we're going to tear it down anyway, so let's get some type of benefit out of it for our guys. Let's do some training for them instead of just tearing it down and that being that. So that's what we were doing. It was like a week-long evolution where we'd go out there on our off day. Of course, since you're fighting actual fire, like no one's going to really like bitch about it and be like, no, I don't want to go do this. Like that's what you live for, is structure fires. And so we were doing that. Like we had just lit up a room, stack a bunch of pallets and hay and stuff in there, get it going good enough, and then you go in with a hand line. So we had just done that, start making entry, and then we still have our radios on because we have, some of the trucks and stuff like that. And so a call comes in for an F-16 with a pilot ejection, which is like super, like that's like
Damn.
a once in like a career for a lot of people that they go to a call like that. So what had happened was at the end of each runway, they have an ILS, which they call an instrument landing system, which kind of guides the pilots as they come in. So as the pilot was taking off, he did gain enough elevation, and his landing gear ended up clipping one of the ILS stands or the light stands. So he drove around, trying to do a loop around to see if he could land, going through all his emergency checklists and stuff like that. Ended up losing a lot of hydraulic power to the point where he was unable to steer it. And of course, at that point, you have to punch out, and you're really just looking for a place to land with minimal damage. So he had ejected out in some farmland, which is probably 20 miles outside of base or so. And so we're back doing our training, and we hear the call for F-16 with an ejection come in. So everyone's freaking
That's
out.
crazy.
Yeah, we put it out, put the fire out, and then from there it's just like a hillbilly shuffle almost. Like we're throwing bottles and gear and whatever you can into like POVs, like people's personal vehicles, try and get out to the scene because we only have a number of fire trucks. So we get out there. We pass the canopy or the glass cover that covers where the pilot sits in the jet. We pass that along the way, and we're just kind of like trying to look, see if the pilot's out there somewhere. Like it's a big crash scene, like you don't know necessarily where the impact zone is. So yeah, eventually we find it. German authorities are already kind of starting to gather out there, but it's kind of like a big cluster at first while you're figuring everything out. So the accident scene itself on F-16s, they have a substance called hydrazine, which if you inhale it, can potentially be fatal. So that automatically turns it into a hazmat scene as well. So not only are you dealing with an aircraft crash, you're dealing with a hazmat situation. So the big level A suits, you see the people in like the big green or orange
Yeah.
suits.
Yeah.
We had to put those on. Like there's no fire at this point. Like there's a big fireball initially, and then from there, just kind of like all the fuel had burned off. But we still treat it as a hazmat incident. And so we put on our level A suits and we're just going in there. So it's just a big kind of long-term scene at that point. Pilot survived. They picked him up. I forget how far from the crash site, but he survived. No known injuries, but probably last time he wanted to go through that type of experience. But yeah, that was probably the most interesting call that we had.
Sounds about right. It couldn't happen any other time. Had to happen when you get the building burning down for training. Meanwhile, the pilots getting ejected. That's pretty wild, dude. And you walk around in the Mars spacesuit of the hazmat area. That's crazy. That's a crazy day, dude. You go unravel that, decompress, and like tell someone about that. They might not even believe what you tell them, man. That's crazy. Is that what steered you away from the Air Force to the Army then? What was a catalyst there?
Yeah, so like again, Germany was my first duty station. Like it's 2 years there. During those initial 2 years, I think it was like 6 months, 7 months after I got there. Like we were slotted for our first deployment. So Initially, I wasn't set to go on that. Like I wasn't part of that cycle, but there's another guy on it where his wife was about to have a child, and so he was looking for someone to kind of switch off and kind of take his spot on there, so he could be there for his first child. And I was like, I'm always looking for excitement, so yeah, I'll definitely like if you want, I'll take your spot on this. Like you're not gonna. I'm single, so I'm not gonna like argue about doing exciting and fun stuff. So get on that deployment, go through that, and for me, that's where I really like when I talk now about like focus and like mission connectedness and having a purpose, like that's why I had initially found that type of thing, just because a lot of the distractions, like I know it was like early 2000s during that time, but like, you still have a cell phone and internet and stuff like that. But you go to a deployed environment, you don't have a lot of those same luxuries, or if you do, they're hard to get to. And so for me, it was just that like the clarity of waking up every day and knowing exactly what you needed to do and just having something or a goal or objective each day was something that was really like intriguing to me. And so I went through that, got back from the deployment, and then eventually came back stateside for my next duty station. Sorry, the cat's going to come here.
No, you're good.
So go through that. And I go on to my next duty station, which is back stateside, Laughlin, which is a border. It's on the border here in Texas with Mexico. So kind of secluded, like it's a 2-hour drive to get to the nearest big city, which is San Antonio. I'm there just kind of just waiting for another deployment. So it's by this time it's probably been 2.5 years since my first one, and I'm just looking for more excitement. Like Laughlin itself is a training base for pilots, so you don't get a lot of the craziness that was happening in Germany. And I'm just waiting, like, okay, like a deployment window is going to come up. Like, hopefully we get on it. And then that just kept happening. Like, it would come up, we get passed over. They didn't need people to deploy. I went as far as just like volunteering for deployment. So they call it like escort duty, where like contractors that come on overseas, like you just pretty much escort them around. Volunteered for that type of stuff as well. Like didn't even get picked up for that, which is like
Dang.
not the best type of job you want to do. Being deployed. Sorry, cat's coming back.
No, you're good. We need the cats in the video. That's all good. Added viewership, dude. If I don't mind, I didn't know that you deployed. My bad. I want to skip over that whole thing. So, just to stop real quick and touch on the deployment. Did you go to Iraq or Afghanistan?
So I went to Iraq with the Army. Air Force, we went to Kyrgyzstan. So it was a little
Oh,
bit,
you're in Man.
little bit
Oh,
of
yeah, you
different.
said you're in Manas, dude. Right? You're
Yeah.
in Manas or whatever. So you had all access to all the. Remember all the candy bars they used to have in the defect? You remember that, dude? I only
I
went.
don't
You
remember
don't
candy
remember,
bars
dude? They
now.
used to, man. We went through there to go to one of my deployments to Afghanistan, and dude, they were loaded. But I didn't know if you knew about that. I don't know, man. But anyways, how was it being over there? Was it chill? Was it busy? How was it for you?
Yeah, so we had gotten there probably 2 years or so after it stood up. So they didn't have a lot of the hard structures and stuff. I know the U.S. had a presence over there for a number of years after we had left, but at the time, like it was a lot of tents and stuff like that. And I guess they hadn't put the candy bar in by then.
Maybe not,
On the
dude. I guess
defect.
not. You missed out, man.
Yeah, that was '05 when we went there to Manus.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like as far as calls and stuff like that, it's a lot of the same as Germany. So we were right there on the flight line. Um, not too much crazy stuff happened while we were there. So it was kind of like low key on that side of it. But yeah, just being that close to it, and again being separated from a lot of the everyday distractions was something that definitely like appealed to me. But yeah, so I end up I go to Laughlin, get passed up for a few cycles, and then just kind of get frustrated because at this point I have like 2 years left of my contract. I'm like, I don't want to spend another 2 years here at this border town. Like going to Mexico kind of like lost its luster after doing it a few times, and just like travel and things to do. Like there's not a whole lot in the immediate area. So I was like, well, let's kind of like look for some options, see what's out there. They had a program. I'm not sure if they still do, but at the time it was called Blue to Green, where if you were within one of the other services, you could transition to the Army mid contract. So I started looking at that, and at the time I had just been promoted. So by now I just sewn on E5. I was like, okay, I definitely want to keep my rank because I've had this for like a month. Like I don't want to go back in
Damn.
rank.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to stay in the Air Force really at this point, or at least within this area. So I look at blue to green. There's like a few options as far as jobs. So I go talk to a recruiter. I'm like, hey, I just promoted. I'm trying to keep my rank. Are there any jobs that would allow you to do that? And he's like, yeah, I think he'd list off like engineer. There was another one, and then infantry. And infantry was kind of like always. That's kind of like already the path that I wanted to go. And so I was like, okay, yeah, we'll do infantry. Like it's best of both worlds. Well, best of three worlds. Like I can keep my rank, I can take the job that I want, and then it gets me out of Laughlin. So go through that. And then of course, you hear like recruiters lie and stuff like that. Like never take what they say at like face value. And that was kind of the case. Like, yeah, we'll shoot you right through basic training. Like you go to the tech school or AIT, and then from there, like you go to your duty station. So I was like, all right, cool. Go to a 30-day kind of transition program they have out in White Sands in New Mexico, which is supposed to like take the place of basic training, and then from there go to Fort Benning. Problem with the infantry was like their basic and AIT is meshed together, what they call OSET or one station unit training. And so it's just one continuous cycle of basic and AIT meshed together with no like clear differentiation between the two. So they put me back in like week 4, and I think it's like, I don't know, 16 weeks
or something like that for
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, so they put me back in like I guess you would call it the red phase of basic training, where
Oh God.
drill sergeants and all are still hard on you, and of course me coming in as an E5, like they think I am coming in with something to prove. I definitely wasn't like.
Oh yeah, you know that.
Yeah, so they want to like, I guess, put me in my place, I guess you could say, of like, hey, like I'm the drill sergeant, I'm in charge here. Like you're still just a trainee type thing. They smoke you and all of that when you first get there, and then put you in charge, just like the platoon sergeant or whatever, of 80 people, brand new recruits and stuff like that with no military experience. So it's not something I want to do again, but like that was like the pathway to get into to the Army. So it was a necessary evil, I guess you could say.
Dude, what did your aunts say and your mom when you told them that you're going to do that? Did they have any feedback for you? Not like because they were saying don't join the Army at first, and you're like, you know what, I'm doing this. What'd they have to say?
Yeah, so I mean, like even if they didn't like say it explicitly, like I knew they're like, man, you're a damn idiot doing this. Like, what are you doing? But like my old fire chief, so at Laughlin, the fire chief I had there, he had been in the Army. He's like, dude, you're gonna hate it. Like, do not do it. I just
Yeah.
thought he wanted to keep me there. So I was like, all right, whatever, man. But yeah, it was a big difference. Like even just the way they treat you, just speaking like Air Force basic training to Army basic training, that was different. And then even everything after that, the Army was more of like a military structure. Like you have people standing at parade rest when you're talking to like an NCO.
Oh yeah.
Like that didn't happen a lot in the Air Force unless you're in trouble and you're going to talk like to a commander or your supervisor or whatever it is. So you got to be like in some deep trouble to be standing at parade rest in the
Dude,
Air Force.
I
But
got to
that was
touch
just
on.
like,
My bad. Go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I
I was
was
gonna
gonna
say
say
I
like,
gotta just touch. Go ahead. Go ahead. My bad, dude. I got something to say on that. It's funny.
yeah,
I was just gonna tell you, dude. And when I worked in Africa as a contractor, I was on the Air Force base, and I seen a fucking E4 sit at the desk with their feet up, talking to the fucking base commander, dude. I almost shit myself as a civilian. I said, "Oh, dude, this would never happen. You'd
no,
be standing at parade rest and maybe get told relax or whatever." But dude, like you said, I didn't mean to try to talk over you. I just wanted to say that, like, I'll never forget that, man. I almost wanted to say something. I was like, "Holy shit, dude, this is crazy."
yeah,
But go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh no, that's pretty much the same thing I was gonna say. Just like just I didn't see that exact same thing, but yeah, just like the Air Force for me was a lot more like it wasn't necessarily like college, but it was more civilianized versus the Army, where you have that highly structured environment, and the NCOs for the most part have a lot more say and power, at least in my experience that I've seen. Especially when it comes to like leading their teams and everything. Just because the lower enlisted or the Joes, like you don't want to get smoked, so you're going to listen to what your team leader or squad leader tells you. Yeah, it's a crazy difference between the two.
Yeah, definitely. So you got to see best of both, and doing that as an E5 too. That's wild. You know they're gonna mess with you, even if you went as an E4 or anything prior service or with rank on your chest. They're gonna tear you up, man. It's just how I guess the army really operates. Where'd you end up getting stationed after your training?
Yeah, so graduated from Benning, and then I wanted to stay stateside, so I was really looking at Fort Carson out in Colorado. Didn't get that. Ended up going to Camp Casey in Korea
Oh,
as my
damn.
first duty station on the Army side, which, and again, we talk about like the difference between Air Force and Army. Like a lot of my friends on the Air Force side had been to Korea, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's awesome." They've been to Osan or Kunsan. Yeah, it's awesome here. So all right, and then you talk to the Army, it's a little bit of a different story. Again, a lot of it depends on what base you go to, but at least for me, like Camp Casey was, we were always training.
Yeah.
So you're always either getting back from the field or prepping for your next field exercise, or you're already out in the field. Um, so yeah, that side of it was not. I mean, some of those army guys are crazy. Like I think the first like 6 months we were on restriction because they'd go out in town, get drunk on soju and end up fighting a civilian, like a Korean civilian or something. And then, the base garrison commander would just like lock everyone down, like lock all of 2ID down, and like you're not going anywhere for the next like 3 months. So
What's wrong with the army people, man? They don't know how to act, dude. Even when I was in Germany, dude, we came back from Afghanistan. I'm in October. I'm at Oktoberfest. I got some of my soldiers with me and stuff like that. We're having a good time. Get a call. Everyone needs to come back. 1700 UCMJ action. If you don't,
wow.
what the hell? What happened? Get back. They confiscate all the alcohol, lock us down. Dude, we just back from Afghanistan. Someone got drunk in the barracks and did like the bat or whatever, that crazy shit. Like they showed that did it to the sergeant major, dude. And then they lit off then they fired off the fire. They probably needed to call you and the firefighter gang because they lit off the sprinkler system and flooded the barracks, dude. What's wrong with people, man? Act right,
That's
dude. Do have a plan, have a party, dude. Have some battle buddies around you that aren't gonna make you do something stupid, dude. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, and like you said, I've never been to Korea, but I've heard party hard, work hard, and like in the army, if you go to Korea, you know you're gonna work, dude. Like you just said, you know you're gonna be in the field. You're not at Osan in the basketball gym or whatever. It's just two different. You've done both of them, and you're speaking from experience, so you could talk better than me about it. But it's just the nature of the army beast, I suppose, man. Um, but how long did you stay in Korea for? 1 year, and get
yeah.
wrote out.
So yeah, I got lucky. Like, of course they want you to stay longer, so they try and coax you to do like an extension. But I was like, no, like it was nice to experience someone like the Korean call. And again, like another country that has fantastic food. And I still like going to like Korean barbecues here in Texas, which they
Absolutely.
do have. So great food and stuff like that. But like for me, like I wanted to like just go to another. Like you're not going to very rarely were they having people deploy right out of there just because it's already like a short term assignment. Like you're already there, you're just there for 12 months, so they don't want to like I guess like throw a wrench in that type of thing. So again, I'm looking to deploy again. I'm like, yeah, like I was in Korea for 12 months. Like that's enough for me. Like let's go somewhere and then kind of like see what the next chapter holds. Um, so yeah, get orders to Fort Hood back here in Texas. Um, Come here, and then like immediately like I get my wish. Like the guys had or the team I joined, they had just gotten back from their last deployment. And then they're already like slotted like, hey, like next deployment's coming. So you have like a year to like, re-prep, get ready, do your little relaxation before, then like we're going back at it. And so like that first year at Fort Hood was just all training. Like you're doing the prep work, you're doing the evolutions and evaluations, making sure your platoon's up to speed. Um, and then yeah, right after that, so we did our year, went out to NTC, did our 30-day rotation out there, which kind of I don't know. A lot of people don't like NTC, but it's good for like evaluations and kind of just like getting those like it's like jitters out of like okay, like how good are we as a team, like focused on the mission and so forth with all these different like scenarios that could be thrown at us type thing. But yeah, we went through that, did NTC, and then did our Christmas R&R, and then deployed right after that to Iraq. Cat's back.
Yeah, you ready? What kind of cat you got? Mix.
So it's a tortoise shell cat. It's like two or three different colors.
Okay, that's cool, man.
Always
Cats are
comes up
cool.
here when I have meetings.
That's cool. Trying to get involved. We had a Siamese cat growing up, man. Cats are cool. They turn on you though sometimes, man. They just bite you. You
Oh
patting
yeah.
them, you try to take care of them, man. They snatch you right up, dude. But it's all good. Where'd you go in Iraq?
So we were outside Basra. So they had a big fob at Basra. So we spent our 3 weeks in Kuwait. It's kind of like acclimating and stuff like that. And then while we were there, they told us where we were eventually going, which is this little camp called Patrol Base Minden. So we flew into to Fob Basra, spent about a week there, and then we kind of just rotated in teams out. So I guess I got lucky on that of being like the first leg or rotation going out to the patrol base. So we were replacing Fourth ID, who was already they've been there for a year. So we fly in on the Blackhawks. It's kind of just like a high five. Like you get off the helicopter, and then like one of their guys jumps on type thing. So like five of us go out there, five of them get on the Blackhawk, and then from there it's just a lot of like familiarization. Brand new area. You don't know. You haven't done like really a recon of the area, so you don't know what to expect. So kind of like I know that the Army calls it like left seat, right seat, where you're going out on missions and patrols with them, just trying to like figure out the terrain and what's going on in the area and any instances that have been happening. Um, so yeah, we went through that. Like the rest of our platoon eventually got there, and then from there we kind of we rotated. So we had three different platoons that were on the patrol base, and we would just rotate three different areas. So first week would be mission week, where you're going out, you're doing key leader engagements. They had a river there that was known for smuggling, so we go out there and camp out at the river at night and just kind of like see what's going on, look for IED emplacements and stuff on the main route. Dude, that was all first week, and then second week was QRF and training the Iraqi army. So by this time, it's 2011, and we're starting to like we know we're going to draw down eventually, so we're pretty much the last people that are going to be at that patrol base. So we host like I guess you could call it like a week-long academy for the Iraqi army. Like they'd come in, we teach them soldiering fundamentals of, hey, this is how you set up a checkpoint, this is how you search your vehicle, this is how you search people type thing. Which I mean, Afghanistan is probably a lot of the same. Of you see the local forces or the host nationals not necessarily taking a lot of that seriously. Like we're there to train them because we want them to be successful once we leave. And then I mean, we have people fucking around, just like
Yeah.
you see guys carrying their AKs and they're holding it by the trigger, like their
All
finger in the
all
trigger
type of
while
crazy shit, man. Or
yeah.
walking around with a pet monkey, or doing all uniform all jacked up, or they
Oh yeah.
can't do jumping jacks. It's crazy, dude. I know you've seen it all. I know you've seen it all, dude.
Yeah.
What were they smuggling at the river? Weapons,
So
drugs, people.
yeah, a lot of weapons for the most part. I mean, drugs we didn't see too much of. Um, but yeah, like we didn't really catch anyone in the act.
Okay,
Uh, I mean, I'm sure there were scouts out there. I mean, we'd go through like a local village and stuff like that, and that's another one of the things of being out there is you don't know like who's on your side or with you versus like who's the enemy.
for
So
real.
you're constantly guessing. Like you go into a village, you don't know if this person is going to stab you in the back once you turn around, or if there's someone that really wants to help you. I mean, even with like interpreters, we fired at least two of our interpreters just because we didn't trust them. Like the first guy we had there, um, it's funny, he actually grew up like a few miles from my hometown in Michigan. So like
Damn.
we had that in common. And I mean, super smart dude. Like he spoke 5 languages and he was just no nonsense. Like we go out and conduct these engagements with the local villages, and he would tell you like straight up, like, yeah, like this person, like they're pretty trustworthy. Or like, yeah, don't trust anything they're saying. Like, so he just had that intuition and knowing how the culture operates and stuff like that. It just that sixth sense. Um, but yeah, like we fired interpreters just because like we don't know, are they gathering information on our like they're on our base, they're
Yeah, they're
sleeping
living
like in
there.
their
Yeah,
own
they're living
pots.
in. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that I mean that was one of the things. And I mean a lot of incidents happened. Like so the first few months there was pretty quiet, and then they had set up there's a I guess like truck parking lot right across from where the base was. So like kind of like picture the area. We had our little patrol base, and then just a quarter mile away was the Iraq-Iran border. So there's a lot of like traffic coming across both ways, and a lot of them would just like park their truck over there. But they ended up putting like one of those tower lights, like a big like almost like a phone tower type thing with a red light at the top of it. So they had put that up right across our base, right across from our base. And like, again, the months up to that was super quiet, like nothing's really happening. And then they start rocketing us, and they get closer and closer. And we could tell that they're using that as kind of like a target. Like they know that light is like right across from our base.
Damn.
And so, they're targeting that. And you start to see these. I remember we were on Tower Guard, or that was our week two or sorry, our week three, which is when we do like they had the towers all around, so you do like the base security pretty much. So we were on that. That was what we were doing that week, and I was what they call sergeant of the guard, or the person. I was sitting in the MREP at the ECP, and you're sitting up there in the gunner's turret, and you start to see, one round comes in, and you report it where it's at, and then the next round comes in, it's a little bit closer, and it just keeps like progressively getting closer. They're using that as like an aiming point or a targeting thing for, to hit the base. But we go to our base commander, and we're like, hey, like this is what we think's happening. Like they're using this tower to target us, and that's why we're getting all of this IDF coming in. And so, he just kind of brushes it off. I imagine he wants to keep a relationship with the local, who would ever put that up, whether it's the government or local companies, whatever. So he's trying not to ruffle feathers like that. But our platoon sergeant, like he wouldn't take shit from anyone. So, our next week out on patrol, like we take our MRAPs out, and we halt the convoy. We stop on the side of the road, and he gets out, like he takes all his gear off, and he climbs up this tower, and he cuts the cord to the light.
Damn.
So if we went down the whole road, we'd pause the convoy. If there's another one over there, he'd get out. Same thing, climb up there as a Leatherman, cut the electrical cord, and the IDF stopped for the most part after that. So like, there's crazy stories like that.
No, that's wild, dude. But you never know if they were using that and they never went out to get it fixed, huh? Like they never the locals or whatever, whoever put it up, they never went out there to repair it.
Yeah, they either didn't notice or just didn't care. But yeah, light never went on after he got it.
No, better for you guys, man. So on the small bases like that, yeah, like when you're saying you guys were giving high fives, my last deployment to Afghanistan, I went to a cop, and those places they don't even have enough room. You don't have the beds for everyone to stay, so it's different than going to like a fob and saying, "Oh, we get the whole unit here. We're gonna." Because I was at fobs my first two units, and they would have most of the whole unit even after Advon got there, but they would have the room, But when you're on those small bases like you were at, you only got so much space, man. So it's a crazy turnover to say the least. I wanted to ask you about food. Did you guys get hot food, or were you guys living on MREs?
So we got lucky. We had hot food. So we had two cooks that were out there with us.
Okay.
So we had a little chow tent. It wasn't like, any of the defects that you find at the bigger fobs, where I mean, some of
Not
them
at
have
all,
like
dude.
full
Not at
salad
all.
bars, and anything you could want is there. So I mean, for us, it was just one of those small like 10-person tents that we had converted into, throw a few benches in there, and then you have your mermite food, pretty much, your dehydrated eggs and all of that stuff that the cooks would cook. But yeah, I mean, luckily it was hot food. Like very rarely did we have to resort to MREs. So it was nice in that sense. And again, like going back to like not having that luxury, kind of like it just made that mission set, like in that focus that you had, that much clearer, because you're not focused on, complaining because you don't have steak on a Friday night or whatever it is. Like you're thankful for
That's
what you
true.
have. And
Absolutely.
all you're thinking about is like, okay, what do I need to do to keep my team safe? Keep doing the mission, executing the things that we need to, so I can get everyone home alive type thing.
Yeah, when you're on that small base, I mean, the things that you would have that would make a difference: internet, air condition, hot shower, maybe a toilet to go to the bathroom on instead of a porta potty, and some hot food, all that, and get some mail on time. That stuff goes a long way. Because I was a cook in the army, so my first two deployments, I didn't really have to do cooking, but my third one, man, I was at two cops, middle of nowhere, Afghanistan, and then a fob. But being a cook like that, you're appreciated a lot more than a DFAC in the States, man. If you can cook and you know what you're doing, because a lot of people shit on the cooks, and I mean, it is what it is. But when you're out there and you cooking the food, or you know what I mean, like you can really make a difference. So don't shit on your cooks, man. Make friends with the cooks, supply medics. You need them all, dude. You need everybody on the team to perform well, to make the mission set that much better. So seems like you went through. It's a big difference from the Air Force to the Army, then, right? From your experience.
Yeah, big difference in pretty much every sense. But I mean, good experiences on both because you get to see the best of both worlds and kind of I mean, especially now, like in the transition, being able to understand where people are coming from. So, at least on the Air Force and the Army side, just understanding where people on both of those, coming from both of those branches, like what they experienced and having a sense of kind of their background coming into it. Because I mean, for myself, if I just stayed Air Force, like I would have been completely oblivious to like everything that happens on like the Army side. And I'm sure a lot of it happens like on the Marine Corps. Navy has their own unique things and nuances within their service. So everyone has this different background, but just being able to experience it myself and then understand that everyone has a different background as they transition out is something that's definitely been beneficial for helping on people or understand the stories of other people that are getting out.
Absolutely. So what happened after your deployment? Did you think you said you were done with the military? Like lead us up to the time where you started devising a plan if you did that, or just walk us through you leaving the army and going to civilian life. What that look like?
Yeah, so my ETS was right after we were slotted to get back from Iraq. So I mean, by that point, I had just made up my mind. Like at this point, it's been close to 8 years. Like not really looking to renew my contract. Like civilian world's calling. I'm on to something else that's not involving the military. So my mind had been made up. Um, and the way I approached it was, and I advise people against this now, was just like putting all your eggs in one basket. Um, and for me, what that looked like was like, again, I like that deployed environment. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back. At this time, I'm still single. So no family obligations. Like I'm kind of like a free agent as far as like what I want to do next in life. Um, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to come back doing contracting. I'm going to do firefighting as a contractor just because I had known a lot of people that I had worked with on the Air Force side that were firefighters. They got out, went the contracting route, working in Djibouti or Afghanistan or Iraq as a firefighter on base, and they were making, 3 or 4 times what I was making as an active duty personnel member. So I was like, okay, yeah, like I'll do that. I can do that for like 3 years. So I'll have enough money saved, and then I could open a gym down in San Antonio. And that was like my like fail safe plan getting out. It was like get the money doing contracting, move to San Antonio, and just open a gym from there with all that money from contracting. And yeah, as you could guess, that didn't work out. like, um, pretty quick transition for me. So I got back right before Thanksgiving, and then January was when I had already cleared everything, did CIF, did the final briefs and the transition program. Went through all of that, and then signed out right after that. And I'm just a civilian now, trying to figure everything out
Damn.
again without having a lot of like planning of like, okay, like I'm gonna go talk to a recruiter. I'm gonna have people like, if I had LinkedIn at the time, like I'm gonna have them looked at my LinkedIn profile and so forth. So none of that was happening. It was more so like I'll get out and then I'll figure out what my next step looks like from there. Like all I know is I want to go do contracting again. So like that's what I'm kind of like. That's what's pulling me.
Right.
And so get out, and then I start looking for like, okay, let's find these contracting jobs. So I look at like the KBR side or Halliburton, and like no one's posting jobs. And like
Damn.
in my head, like I didn't put two and two together because like when we were back at Patrol Base Minden, we had shut that base down and handed it back to the Iraqis. Like we took all our stuff that we could, destroyed any like sensitive stuff, and like we were out of there. Um, but all of that was happening, and that was like the drawdown. So everyone's like shifting south back towards Basra, closing up all these outposts that we have. But in my head, like being in the thick of it, you don't really like put two and two together and be like, okay, like thinking of when I get out, like maybe there aren't going to be a lot of contracting jobs here because all these other bases are closing down and like we're shipping out. I didn't realize that, and so I'm now a civilian, like waiting. I'm like, okay, like where are these like contracting jobs? Like it seems so easy to get.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, like months go by, like I'm not really seeing much. If anything, maybe like one or two would come up, but I didn't get any calls on them. So I was like, okay, I got to do something else. Like I had done my personal training certification. Like I started studying in Iraq, which was like, I guess like one of the good proactive things that I had done. Like anytime we weren't on missions or like pulling base security, like that's what I would do is just like study for this exam. Um, So got that certification, and I was like, okay, like if I can't do contracting, like we'll go do personal training. Um, so there's a Golds in town. There's a Golds right outside of Fort Hood. I was like, okay, I'll go do that. And again, just like looking for, like waiting for an opening to come up, and months go by, but eventually I do. Like I go interview, somehow get the job, and start working as a trainer at Golds. Um, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is where the money's at. Like, your personal training, you're charging like $67 an hour for these clients. Like, you get a few clients, like you're gonna be rolling in the dough type thing.
Right.
Um, but again, that wasn't the case. Like, of course, like the gym's gonna take their cut of it. Of like, okay, you're training these people, like we're taking 30% of that, taxes and all of that stuff. So all the things that you don't think about ended like I ended up with like hardly anything at the end of the week, and I was like, this definitely isn't something that's sustainable, especially compared to all the effort and work that I'm putting in. Cold call clients and try and get people in, give them a free session type thing, and then kind of just do this sleazy salesman
Mm.
like selling of them of like, hey, these are all our like packages, like what do you want type thing. Like for me, it was just like it was uncomfortable and didn't feel authentic, and in the way I was like, it almost felt like I was taking advantage of people, even if it was like a service that they wanted or needed. But yeah, I think I lasted for maybe just over a month, maybe there, and I was like,
Damn.
no, like yeah, like it was that quick.
Dude, rewind a little bit for me and tell me about what your leadership thought about you leaving the military, if anything. Did anyone have a conversation with you asking you what your plan was? Did anyone try to use scare tactics on you? And looking back at it now, what would you have done differently leaving the military on such a short timeline?
Yeah, yeah, great questions. So didn't really have any of my direct leadership. So again, like they were just getting back and readjusting as I was going through the out processing. So
Right.
they'd come back from Iraq, like they're worried about like everything of trying to like refit everyone and leave and everything that's
Yeah,
happening
block
right after
leave,
that.
Christmas, they
Yeah.
don't give a damn, dude.
Yeah. So there wasn't really anyone that like sat me down. I was like, okay, like what does your plan look like? Let's see if this is feasible, or is there anything I can do to kind of help out with this? Um, and then yeah, for me, like as far as things I would change would be probably everything, meaning
Yeah,
that like um, I would have started the process of like planning what my transition looks like probably like a year or two before leaving the military. Whether that's like finding different career paths I want to go down, pursuing more of my college degree while I was in, so I can use tuition assistance, talking to people, figure out like what their experience was like getting out. Like I didn't do any of that. It was a crapshoot of getting out, and then just like reorienting myself from there of like, okay, where am I at and where do I want to go and how do I get there type thing, which it's a bad place to be in as you're already out because your paychecks aren't coming in from the military anymore. Like everything's kind of like dwindling down, and you have that stress and that fear of like, okay, like my bank account, like I'm seeing it go down, like I don't have a job, like what am I going to do type thing. But at the same time,
absolutely.
I don't know what I want to do. So yeah.
You make valid points, man. I mean, I was the same way, dude. I was so ready to get out of the army that I didn't even go to my VA appointment to get my initial rating. How dumb
Mhm.
is that, dude? You know what I'm saying? It took me 5 years to get where I'm at, but I'm at 100%, but it took 5 years, dude. So, I mean, the moral of the story is whether it's the VA disability or not, have a plan. When people go in business, you have to have an exit strategy. When you go into the military, you got to have an exit strategy, like you said, at least 1 or 2 years out. It doesn't have to be set in stone, but even if you have that plan A of, you know what, I'm going to go contract. I got some people in Djibouti. They're not going to guarantee you a job. And what if the contracts dry up? What if the company loses the contract? What if you lose your certification? What if you have a kid? What if you have a family hardship? You like what if you got to have a plan A, B, and C. You got to have multiple things. And like you said, you make great points of what you would do over. Use the tuition assistance. It sounds not appealing when you're in the military, right? When you're a young kid and you say, damn, I don't want to go to school. But dude, you'll get so much further. I mean, you've come a long way from Gold's Gym. I saw that you got PMP. I saw you got your MBA. I saw that you're a Scrum Master. So obviously you've done your thing outside of the military, but think about how far we could be if we got a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in the military. And like you said, you could use your GI Bill or voc rehab when you get out. You could have a doctorate's degree if that's something you want to go after. Maybe you don't want to be in education like that, but at the same time, when you're working at Gold's Gym or you're working in dead end jobs like I took when I was out the military, and you're making ends meet, and you think you're in a place that you don't fit the bill, that you don't want to be, going to school and getting paid for somewhere like Florida, $2,700 a month for BAH tax free, and getting a Pell Grant or getting student loans and being able to get them forgiven for having a certain disability. That's not really that bad of a gig when you think of it. You know what I mean? That you're furthering your education, you're learning, you're getting paid to go to school. It's just something to think about. But no, I appreciate you sharing that stuff. I mean, I would do the same thing as you said. I would have done more school while I was in. I would have went to my VA appointment. I would have networked. I wouldn't have been. I would have done my own due diligence, because really it's up to us to figure out what we want to do. No one else is going to be there. But when you're in the military, everyone's telling you where to be, what time, what uniform. You don't really have to do too much thinking. When you become an NCO, then you got to take care of soldiers and stuff like that. But for the most part, everything's mapped out. It doesn't matter your MOS, but when you leave that military and get on uncharted waters, you don't know what's coming and you don't know what's swimming around. So appreciate you sharing that. What helped you get through all the stuff? Like what happened after Gold's Gym? Let's do that.
Yeah, so that's where we get into the, I guess, like, interesting part of
Okay.
everything. So, um, yeah, at this point, like, I'm still trying to figure everything out. Like, I'm not going to school, doing all the things, like taking advantage of all the benefits that you just mentioned. Like, for me, I'm living outside of Fort Hood. Two of my buddies, they're my roommates. They're still on active duty, so like every day, like, they go off to work, and I'm just kind of like hanging out at home,
Yeah.
playing Xbox for the most part, just feeling like, okay, like, this is a lifestyle type thing. You know, it looks good on, it's fun for a few weeks, and then
Yeah.
after that you're like, this is kind of getting old. Like, it's the same repetitive thing. Like, I was searching and trying to apply to jobs, so I would, like, I'd half-ass like 2 or 3 job applications, thinking like that was enough. Like, in my, like, one of my misconceptions getting out was like, people would see, the Army and the Air Force listed on my resume, and that be like an automatic, like, phone call from a recruiter of like, holy shit, you're in the military, like, come work for us type thing. Like, they roll out a red carpet for you,
Yeah.
which wasn't the case. Like, that's what I expected, or that's what I thought would happen in my head. But like, the reality of it was, it had, a lot of work had to happen on my side, as far as building my resume, learning how to interview, because interviewing on a civilian world is definitely different versus like a promotion board in the military. And so learning all of these things, um, that's kind of like the spot I was at. And so I'm putting in for these job applications, not hearing anything back. And again, with everyone recently coming back from deployment, like, everyone wants to party, and that's kind of like every weekend, that's what we're doing. So, we're partying, alcohol being a depressant. Like, I'm at this point, like, I'm not drinking just to, like, have fun and, like, drink socially. It's like, I just want to forget all of this, like, the shitty feeling of not hearing back from recruiters, and like, just the frustration of not knowing what I want to do in my life.
Yeah.
Even though I had, and that's the big difference, is like you mentioned, in the Army, or whatever military branch, you have all of that guidance and direction, whether you're the one instilling it as an NCO or as an officer, or if you're lower enlisted, like, that's being provided to you. So you have all of that, and then you get out and none of that is there. Like, it's on you to create a lot of that structure that you're so used to, and that you spent the last 8 or 12 years, whatever it may be, being such an important part of your life. And so for me, it was just that chaos of like, I don't know what's going on. Like, nothing's working out the way I wanted to. So I would drink, and that's what kind of started the depression for me, of, you know, it being at the present, and then the environment I was in, of not having that purpose or that mission of having a job to get up and go to the next morning. So I'm like, no, I'm just gonna drink to black out, and that'll be it. Like, that's the way to solve my
Yeah.
problems type thing. So that would continue on just a weekly basis of, hey, we're having a party. I'm sitting there drinking 100 proof vodka, just pounding it, taking it to the head, because it's going to do the trick a lot faster for me than something like beer that would. So that's why I started getting really depressed, and then would just sit in bed at night. So the alcohol would start to wear off. And for me, I always keep a handgun just on the side of my bed. It's kind of like that paranoid thing, I guess you could say, but always have my handgun there. And for me, I just started, it was a gradual progression. So at first I would just like kind of hold it, and it was a weird comfort that I would feel from it. So I'd hold it, and I guess what I was really looking for was almost like an adrenaline rush with it. And so like holding it didn't really do it. So like the next step was, okay, I'm gonna take it off safe. And that really didn't do much for me. I'm like, I've handled plenty of weapons before. So the next part was I would put it to the side of my head, and then I put my finger on the trigger. And that's when I really got a sense of adrenaline, was like going through all of that, just knowing how close you are to like life and death, like the difference between the two, and just like being in that moment, like if something happens, like you're an inch away from death essentially. And so for me, that was kind of that excitement, but at the same time, like there's so much danger. Like it's definitely not something that, you know, no one should have to go through that type of experience of finding some type of, I don't know if I'd say purpose, but adrenaline or some type of, meaning in life by having to get to that point, so close to the edge. And for me, and again, that continued for a few weeks of just going through that same process, getting drunk, like just like grab my weapon, put it on the side of my head type thing, progressing and progressing. Um, that continued. And for me, like the only thing that really stopped me was, I guess, like the fear of what that pain feels like. So if I did pull the trigger, if a hollow point rip through your skull, just that feeling of pain that you would temporarily have. I don't know if it's enough time for your nervous system to process it, but that's kind of what stopped me, was just like I don't want to feel like that excruciating amount of pain. And at the same time, like didn't really want to die. Like it was just all the frustrations and things that were happening in life. That's what kind of led up to that. And I wanted to escape all of that. I tried using alcohol, which didn't do it, which brought up to the suicide ideation, thinking that was a potential way to escape all of it. Um, and again, luckily never progressed past that. Um, for me, the thing that kind of got me out of that. So I've always been someone that's been big into fitness. So I grew up playing basketball and hockey and track and field. So I've always been a runner. And for the past 6 months or so, however long it had been since I got out of the army, like I hadn't done any of that, like no running, really no working out. And so like I was like, okay, I need something to like take my mind off of this continual cycle of repetitive losses. And so just went like a mile run was my first one. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a mile. Like I know Target's a half mile down the road. I'm going to run there, turn around and come back. And I think I got about halfway before I had to stop. And like, you're
Yeah,
walking and
yeah.
huffing and puffing. It had been so long, but I was like, okay, I at least need to get this mile out of the way to get one win, because nothing else in my life right now is showing up as a win. Like it's all depression and kind of that dark side of things. So I need something to kind of like get the ball rolling and build that momentum, even if it is walking that final half mile of a mile run. So I did that, and then it seems super small, but for me, that's what kind of initiated everything after that. So I was like, okay, next week we're going to go 2 miles and then 3 miles. So I had that mission and that focus and that meaning in life again of like, okay, it's another week. Like we're 1 mile further. That's our goal for this week. And we just I progressed on that. And it was just a springboard for everything after that type thing.
That's crazy, man. Appreciate you sharing that, honestly, being vulnerable. And I know that's valuable information, and someone's going to be able to use that if you're going through the same thing. We all know people that have committed suicide, man, to be that were in the military. I'm sure you might know some people. I know some people that did it, and it's just not the answer. You got family. You going through something that is sucks at the time, but it's not worth to take your life. So I appreciate you sharing that. I know it's probably not easy for you to say, but I think you're going to help a lot of people by doing that. So I appreciate that. And
Yeah. I mean, I will say like, for me, like initially, like I think the first time I had talked about it in like a group setting was like it was actually at Google. So I was talking with like a brand new team I had joined. Like they're, hey, it was right around Veterans Day, so they're like, hey, you want to like come and talk about your experience? And for me, it was I found it important to kind of like discuss these things because it's almost taboo for a lot of the military community not to talk about it,
yeah,
which takes away from the awareness, the potential to, I guess, overcome a lot of these things. And so that was probably the hardest time talking to it. talking about it and kind of just like telling my story. And then from there, it progressed. So I talked to other teams, I talked to other companies and other skill bridge programs, talking to transitioning veterans about my story, just to spread that awareness of it. Because I think it is important, as unsexy and kind of, I guess, like dark as it is to tell, it's important to have that out there to the world. So
Absolutely.
other people, for one, other people know that they're not alone if they are having us, or if they're not in a scenario like that. And then even with the civilian side of it, just having that connection, because there's such a contrast between the civilian and military worlds that a lot of civilians don't understand that. So that's one of the things I brought up in a group, especially around like PTSD awareness, was like, you're just stuck in traffic. You know, you're in a traffic jam in the city. That's what you see. But like for some veterans and things that I might see is being stuck in, a narrow market where you have buildings on both sides and you don't know, if someone's going to pop out of the window and throw a grenade, or if there's an IED 20 meters up the road. Like just helping them kind of see, I guess, a different side of things and perspective from some people in the military, so they can help understand and maybe even talk to someone in the military, even if they don't have that experience themselves. I think it's definitely important that other people or more people share their stories, and it's never easy to tell, especially being such like a personal, I guess, like a personal event or scenario for most people. But it's definitely important for other people to understand and hear the stories that are out there. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, Michael. Like especially on this podcast here, of bringing awareness to people, whether they're military or not, is definitely something that we need to be talking about, because every suicide is one too many.
Absolutely, dude. I couldn't say it better myself. Seriously, like, yeah, you're right. You're right, though. But I think a lot of the things that have to deal with people scared to tell their story is they're worried about what someone's going to think about them. I mean, that's probably why it might have took me so long to start this. Maybe I cared too much if someone didn't watch the video. But like, if we could just reach one person and help them, that's all you can do, man. Like you said, 122. That's absurd, dude. That's crazy. And even if you're not a veteran, man, you shouldn't. And no one's brought into the world to go out going like that. So that's cool that you can share that story, and you're doing it. And I'm sure you make people emotional. Shit, I did, and I heard it from one of my other buddies I served with, that he went through the same thing. Like, I'm like, damn, dude, that's crazy, because you wish they would call you, or like, we're in a world that, I like to say, we're in a world that's so connected, but we're at the same time we have so much disconnect. And I hope we can change that. Why, it doesn't matter if we serve together or not. We're still brothers or sisters in arms, and we should be able to be there for each other like we were when we were in the military. So, going back to the fitness journey, I played sports myself and stuff like that. And when you're in the military, you're getting paid to PT and all this good stuff. But when you get out, I did the same thing, dude. Fell right off. You're not getting up at 6 o'clock no more to do PT. You're
Fuck
not
no.
going to run. You're not, nah, dude. You're like, hell no. What do I look like? But at the end of the day, dude, even more recently for me, you've probably been on it for a couple years. Like, um, I have an addictive personality, but I was addicted to some of the wrong things, and I'm trying to trade that in for fitness or for helping people now, and it feels so much better, dude. And I mean, I've only started going back to the gym for like maybe 3 or 4 weeks now, but dude, that's all. It doesn't take too much to get going. But the hardest part for me was to just do that first. For you, it would have been that 1 mile. Whether you have to walk that first workout, yeah, it's going to feel like shit. Yeah, you're not going to lift a lot of weight, but who cares? Just do it. Start now. It's no better time. What was your take on that? What was the hardest thing for you to get going? Was it just to do it or something else?
Yeah, yeah. So congratulations to you, first of all, for getting back on that
Appreciate
fitness
that,
journey.
dude.
That's
Feeling good,
awesome.
man. Feeling good, dude.
That's awesome. Yeah, like you mentioned, like it's that initial obstacle of the first week. Like, you're gonna be sore that first workout, that first run,
Oh,
like
yeah.
regardless how long it's been. Um, but just building that back into a routine and having that structure. I mean, just like the military, like you get up and you do PT, and that's your everyday life. And then, yeah, you get out, and it's up to you at that point. Like, no one's going to be pounding on your door at 6 a.m. asking why you're not at the gym or why you're not out on the track.
Right?
So it's on you, and that's one of the things I tell people transitioning out is build some type of structure or routine, like whether that's the gym, working out, or school, whatever it is. You need that continual, I guess, like structure in your life, or else you fall off, and then who knows how far you fall down from there. But yeah, for me, it's just that initial, like having that initial accomplishment or that green check mark, and then from there pushing a little bit further. So in my case, that was 1 mile going to 2 miles. For you, it might be going from 135 on bench to 185 or whatever it may be. Just like having concrete and specific goals that you could reach towards is really for me just like that's the pinnacle of like what got me out of that hole, and what prevents me from going back down a path like that is just always being focused on something that's going to improve myself and my family.
Dude, absolutely, man. Creatures of habit, and like to put your goals on paper. I'm a firm believer of that, and do it. Try to teach my son that too, man. Because, dude, we can achieve anything, man. Dream boards, vision boards, whatever that looks like for you. Do it. It's better than talk to people about what you're gonna do. Tell them like Patrick Bet David. He said something about you have to like almost. I don't know the exact verbiage, but it's something about you have to almost become a liar in a way of saying you say what you want to do, already say that you're doing it. Not like I'm a liar and gonna like a sneaky liar, but like say what you want to become, say you're already doing it. Whether that's making money, whether that's being a speaker, whether that's running a marathon, say I'm an elite marathon runner. You know what I mean? You gotta lie to yourself essentially to sometimes get what you want. I don't think that's a bad, maybe I put it the wrong way, but if it's out of context, my apology. I have to look it up and figure that out because I don't want someone to take me out of the context. But anyways, um, how did you end up landing at Google, man?
Yeah, so as you're telling that, like I kind of have a bridgeway that kind of like I guess like is an example of what you're talking about of like
Okay, all
thinking
right,
about
need it.
who you are.
There you go.
So, all right. So, got out. Eventually moved back to Michigan. Worked a few different jobs, and again, some of them were super low level. So, I worked reception at H&R Block for minimum wage, which was like my first job after the Golds one. From there, moved to a steel plant, which is super manual work. Which I like that, but again, it didn't pay as much. But it was a step up from H&R Block.
Yeah,
From there, moved on to I did armed security at a nuclear power plant, which was probably the highest correlation between what I had done in the army and there, because you're still carrying an M4, like you have, a sidearm and everything else. You're taking defensive positions, so a lot of that's like second nature. But for me, like I kind of wanted to get back into firefighting, so that's what brought me back to Texas initially. Was working as a civilian, as a firefighter on one of the air bases here. So did that. Ended up when I started to take a look at something else, I was commuting a crazy amount of hours. So I was like, this is not something that's going to be sustainable long term for me. So started looking at Google, and for me, like I didn't really know where to start because it's such a contrast to everything I had done in my background. Um, but at the same time, like you talked about, like vision boards and stuff like that, and thinking about yourself in these types of scenarios. So what I did and what worked for me was like I would create a custom background on my computer of all the things that I wanted in my life. And for me, like I was focusing on Google, so I had a target. Like I made a background that had the Google logo on it. Um, I kind of like photoshopped my bank account, but I like of course made it
heck
a
yeah.
higher number. Um, so all these like visual reminders, and every time I logged in my computer, I was like, okay, this is what I'm striving for, to remind me of the things that I need to work towards. So as I was going through that, I have that as my background now. I start looking at different jobs and stuff like that. Um, First one, I interviewed a few times at Google. So the first time I interviewed, it was like a big rush of imposter syndrome for me, just because I was just like, I was a knuckle dragging grunt, like I was a firefighter. Like none of this has to do with like this job I'm applying to type thing. So it created that conflict of what do they see in me, because I didn't even see it in myself, of like being able to like achieve something like that. So big imposter syndrome at first, like went through the interview process, didn't make it all the way through. But it at least told me, like, it gave me the assurance that I could get that far. Like I knew at this point, like, okay, I know I can get the recruiter to get on a phone call with them. I know I can get to the hiring manager, and then other things after that. Like that's what I'm focused on improving. So go back to the drawing board, start working on my interview skills. I'm taking these certifications to kind of upskill and make myself look more marketable. go back, interview again, don't get that one, and then like a month later, the job I was initially hired for, I applied to that. So I put like all my effort into this. Spent like 2 hours just really going all in on this resume to make sure like everything was aligned, just to show that I was the best candidate for the job. Put in for it, and then it's kind of like didn't think about it after that. But ended up getting a phone call. Did the recruiter screen, did what they call the on-site interview. So you're interviewing with multiple people throughout the day. Go through that, and then it's like a waiting game from there. I'm just waiting to hear back from the recruiter. And I think it probably took about a month or so after. Like I was pestering him, like, "Hey, like any updates on this? Like I want to know." And eventually, like a random day, he called. He's like, "Hey, congratulations, you got the job. Like go check your email. There's an offer in your inbox."
Damn.
So I was like, at that point, it's like unbelievable. Like coming from the background of everything I've done, like all the low points, all the hard work I've done to build myself back up from there and to, improve myself. That was kind of like the culmination of everything up to that point. And then like at the same time being proof that, hey, like you've done something that you didn't think you could accomplish, like I went into it thinking that there was no way I would work at a company like Google. And yeah, now I work here. Giving back to the military community is a big part of that. So like you had mentioned in the intro, like I work on the Skill Bridge program, which is my way to stay connected to the military side of things. And then also just understand all of the different changes that are happening with our transitioning military members that are getting out these days, all of the different tools and stuff like that they have available to them. It's definitely like, for me, it's, I guess, an opportunity that not necessarily everyone has, because they see a name brand company like Google and they want to talk to you. Like when I changed my LinkedIn status to being employed by them, I had a number of veterans and military
Shit, I
members that
bet.
reached out. Yeah. Just because they want to know your path. And I had done the same thing, like as I was interested in the company, of talking to my strategy was talking to other veterans that are already at Google of like, hey, how did you translate your experience? Like, how did you get into this job that seems almost impossible to get into? And so that's my way to kind of give back to people now. It's just like telling my story and then providing any advice or best practices that I use, so hopefully so they can use it to help replicate their own or a similar path.
Heck yeah, dude. What was your initial reaction when they told you you had the job offer? When
I
you got the job and you have the offer in your inbox, what'd you do? You scream after you got off the phone? What'd you do?
Well, I ran upstairs. So I was still on the phone with him. Like I ran upstairs to here to my computer, to log in and kind of like see the offer, because of course like your salary and all of that's on there. So like
Yeah.
jello legs running up the stairs, like out of breath, and I'm trying to remain calm on the phone because he's still there, waiting to confirm that I got the email. I'm just trying to like make it sound like I'm not freaking out type thing. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it took, I would say, months to finally set in. Like even during those initial few months working there, it was hard to believe that I had made it to that point. So it took a while to set in, but it's been satisfying, to say the least.
Is your current position executive delivery operations? Is that what your role
Yes,
is? What does that consist of? If you can
yeah.
get
So
into it.
we Yeah, so it's a lot of, when we look at like executive hiring and so forth, the processes that are involved in that. So when we think about things like program management and process improvement of just analyzing, and a lot of it kind of relates to the Army, which you don't see that like
Hmm,
on the cover. But when you think of things like AARs or after action reports, and you're like doing this analytical view of everything that you did and how you can improve, it's the exact same thing that I'm doing in my day-to-day job, of working with all of these different stakeholders, looking at these processes and kind of like digging into the weeds, the details of everything, and saying, how can we make this better so that improves it for our candidates that are coming through the pipeline.
okay.
So, and again, like outside looking in, like as a military member, like I would never be able to make that correlation just because I don't understand the internal workings of Google or what this title entails. But now that I'm in it, I'm able to kind of like express to others like this is very similar, especially when we talk about like transferable skills. Is something that I harp on with people, because especially coming from the military, you may not necessarily understand that a lot of these things that you're skilled in are actually skills and experiences that are highly valued on the civilian side, whether it's teamwork or problem solving or analytical skills, whatever it may be. Like this is highly valued, but you don't really think about those things as you're transitioning and going through the interview process with civilian employers.
No, absolutely. Hey, congratulations to you, man, for doing that. You had a total mindset shift. It's like a tongue twister, dude, or like a paradigm shift or whatever. You did it, man. I mean, and anyone can if you put the work in. You obviously put the work in. You didn't sit there, have a pity party for yourself and just say, "Oh, all these bad things are happening to me." And dude, everyone has bad stuff happen to them. We all do. Life happens. It's like you're either going into a storm, you're in a storm, or you're coming out of one, dude. It's just how it goes. But like it's all about, you got to take the bull by its horns and make it happen. Just like we did in the military, man. We made shit happen. They tell you to go pick up that trash, you made it happen. They told you to go whatever, man. Go clear that room, you made it happen. Cook that food, you make it happen. You don't ask questions. You don't ask where, it doesn't matter where someone's from, what you're doing. You just did it, man. So congratulations to you for that, dude. I mean, that's pretty badass. Honestly, looking in, you're probably making contracted money without having to go to Djibouti and be a firefighter, dude. So good for you. You deserve it because you put the work in. One question I got to ask you is, what would you say for people that are on the outside looking in that are coming from the military or that may be sitting out there right now thinking about a career at Google? Um, what are some tricks and tips or advice that you have for them going through your own story and talking to the other people that have done it before you?
Yeah, yeah, great question. So I would say it definitely takes persistence and perseverance. And I mean, that applies across the board, regardless of what company you're targeting. But like for background on that, real quick, is like before Google, like my story wasn't like, okay, I was looking at Google, I applied, and then like I went through a few interviews, but eventually I landed it. Like there was a lot that happened in between there as far as like job applications. So I'd applied to a state agency, interviewed, got a job offer, got that rescinded because they didn't like my job history of shifting between jobs.
Jeez, dude.
Um, that happened twice there actually. I went through two
Ah,
separate interviews, got two job offers from them. They rescinded both. Went through that. There were other companies, smaller tech companies that I interviewed with. Got to the final part where it was between myself and another candidate, and they selected the other candidate. That had happened a number of times. So there were a lot of, I wouldn't say downfalls, but a lot of almost to the finish line finishes to where I could see that light at the end of the tunnel. Like I had all my hopes and aspirations set on that, thinking I would get into that. And then it just kind of like fell out from there. So it was that repetitive kind of like roller coaster. You go up, you think you're going to get it. And then just to find out that they select some other candidate. So that would be my first, I guess, tip to people looking at companies is that not everything is going to go your way, but that can be used as a learning lesson. So whether that's thinking about how you can improve your interview skills for next time, how to improve on your resume, how to talk about yourself and your experience and accomplishments from the military, all these things, whether you get the job or not, that's an opportunity to learn. And so I use each of those failed um, interviews as an opportunity or as a stepping stone to improve myself. So it's just, again, same thing I'm doing now is a continual improvement or process improvement just on yourself instead of an actual program. Um, so I would say that I would say definitely talk to veteran, and this is probably the easiest, I guess, like way to understand the company or other people's experiences specific to it is talk to other veterans that are at that company. So, if you're looking at people at Google, if Google's the top company for you, go on LinkedIn, type in, Google, and then you could do a advanced filter to search by previous employers. So you can find people that were in the same job role as you or same branch of service, and that's just that easy connection, just because you already have that commonality of both being veterans and then potentially being from the same branch of service. Um, my experience has been that they're probably more apt to talk to you just because you have that thing in common. Um, so that's another trick is just like connecting with people and understanding what their journey and process was like. Um, and then even as you're so like in my case, and from talking to others at the company, they've had similar experiences of you interview once, you don't get the job. And for most people, they kind of close the book there of like, okay, I interviewed once. Obviously, it's not going to happen again. So, like, I'm just going to search for a different, try to get in a different company or a different job. And they completely give up on it. And from what I found, it's the opposite. So, most of the people at the company have probably interviewed at least twice for a role at Google before they got an offer. So that's what I would say to people on the persistent side of it. It's just because you don't get that first job that you interview for, or even that second, just keep doing it. I think I applied a total of 10 times as I was trying to get into the company for different jobs. So once you find something that fits your skills, learn to translate that, learn to talk about it, and don't let it deter you if there's one or two things that are missing. So specifically with Google, you'll see the minimum qualifications and preferred qualifications as you're looking at, like, if I pulled up google.com/careers and pulled up a job, I'm going to see those two different requirements, and the preferred qualifications could potentially deter people thinking that they have to have every single one of those. So if they're looking for 5 years of experience and a certain certification and a certain educational background as all preferred things, if you don't have one of those, that's okay. Don't let that stop you from applying. Um, because a lot of those are written for people of what the perfect candidate would be, which hypothetically may not be someone that even exists out there.
That's true.
Um, and again, you'll never know if you don't apply. So the worst thing that happens is they say no, but if you don't put it in, it'll never be a potential. So take the chance, put it out there. That's exactly what I did. Like, I knew I wouldn't have the opportunity if I didn't at least try, and that a lot of those no's eventually turned into a yes, and it was a yes that helped transform my life.
Have you always had that mindset of just trying to see what what happens in the worst case is someone says no, or the worst case is you reach out to someone on LinkedIn, like a recruiter or someone, and they don't answer? Because I feel like I have the same mindset as you. If you really want something, put yourself out there and see what happens. Maybe it's meant to be, maybe it's not, or has that mindset sort of been developed over time for you?
Yeah, for me, it's something that's certainly been developed. So if I were to take a look at myself 10 years ago, if I applied to a job then and I didn't get it, I'd probably say, fuck it, like, I'll just move on to something else. Um, and then I guess just that stubbornness, which again, it's a quality that could potentially be beneficial to you, especially when you're on the job search and looking for that next job. But that's where my mindset is now, of understanding, a lot of these recruiters are busy. They're dealing with hundreds of candidates. So it's not every day that you're going to hear back from every single recruiter, every reach out on LinkedIn, whatever it may be. But
Right.
just that persistence of, okay, I know that, it may be something completely unrelated to you. Maybe they're on vacation this week, or maybe, they're dealing with all these other candidates or work things that are happening. Like, it's not always like, I guess easy way to say it is don't take it personal when people don't, you know, reach back out to you, or return your phone calls, whatever it may be. But again, just put everything out there. Don't be afraid. And kind of like my theme now is just don't stop until someone tells you no, type thing.
Absolutely, dude.
So just
Seriously.
keep pushing.
What's next for you then?
Oh, so next, just released a book last week, I think, which is focused around the veteran in military community and the transition. So released that on Amazon. It's called Onward: Finding Your Purpose After the Military, which takes a lot of the things I talked about, and again, it all kind of started as people started reaching out. So once I started working at Google, I was like, my time is limited. Like, I want to help people, but at the same time, like, there's only so many hours in the day. So writing that book was kind of a way to scale it out, to give people the information and tips and tricks that I learned in a way that's, they could still get it, and it's not going to eat up every single hour of my day, because I'm still working a job. I still need to go work out. I have my wife that I need to spend time with, and cats. So there's a
Heck
lot
yeah.
going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I got that going on, which I'm glad it's done. It's been about a year in the making of finally getting the final product out there. Um, but aside from that, I'm continuing, like, I'm a continuous learner now. So I'm looking at the next big thing, which is potentially, and again, it's a lot of work. It's kind of like the initial ideation stage, but finding a way to use machine learning to help the veteran community and to kind of replicate and help provide different frameworks or pathways that they could take. So, for example, like, taking all of your experience, so say you're in the Army, you're a cook, these are some of the skills that you have. Based off of all that and your experience and education, like, these are potential pathways that you could take based off of everything and your aspirations and so forth, and kind of give like structured guidance of, like, this could potentially be step one, step two, step three, to give you that framework of how to transition out of the military. So on my side, it's learning more about coding and stuff like that. Like I'm by no means an expert in coding right now, but it's something um, that I found is definitely going to be like an essential part to this mission of building something, whether it's a website or an app for veterans, to harness all of the technology we have these days to help people at scale.
Absolutely, dude. I'm glad you put it out there, man. That way I could check in on you and make sure you got it going in the right direction. And hopefully, if you ever need me to for anything, I'll be happy to help you and add value in any way I can. But yeah, you've definitely thrown a ton of value out there, a ton of experiences, and hopefully some people have gotten some golden nuggets from our talk today. I wanted to ask you a couple more questions that we could close it up and open it up to you if we forgot anything. What's one thing you miss about the military? What's one thing you like about Google?
Yeah. Uh, One thing I miss about the military, uh, I mean, a lot of it, as shitty as a lot of experiences were in the military, at the end of the day, like the best part of it and the things that made those experiences memorable are the people. So just, having such a close knit team of people, whether it's in the fire department or in the army on the infantry side, they're both close knit communities. So just, you know, thinking back to all those memories I had of friends, even if it's a shitty experience, of just knowing that they're suffering at the same time too, which kind of builds that close connection. Um, but yeah, just thinking about all those people that you're able to interact with and meet and learn more about and have those lifelong relationships with was probably the best part of the military for me. Um, and the best thing about Google is probably just the opportunity to have an impact that allows me to give back to the military community. So speaking on like the Skill Bridge program, of just having a way to use such a big company and to be one of the point of contacts for a program that's exclusive to the military community is something that I don't there are not a lot of other companies I could think of where I would want that type of opportunity um, at that level of scale. So for me, it's something I take um, with great responsibility, just being in a position to help the military at a company like this and helping spread the word and helping the company as a whole, um, helping the other business units understand everything that our military members provide for businesses. So as they're getting out and transitioning, hopefully by educating people and telling my story, I can help them understand everything that military members and veterans offer to civilian employers to help lower that gap between the two.
Okay. What's one more I got, and I'll open it up to you. What's one VA benefit that's changed the trajectory of your life, or whether it's a VA loan, the schooling, anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah, so for me, the schooling was probably the best. So, like backstory, going before the VA. So, when I first got to my first duty station in Germany, I applied to college. I was like, I'm still young. I want to do the college route too. Uh, Failed the first two college classes that I took because I was like, I had no clue. I was like, I'm just gonna still party, live that lifestyle. Fuck homework, like I'll figure it out. And
Yeah.
failed them, had to pay it back, which sucked.
Damn. And
I
you're
was
not
like,
making that
especially,
you're not making that much money when you're like a single soldier at 18,
yeah,
19, dude, as an airman, so that
yeah.
sucks. But you live and learn, right?
Yeah, it definitely took an impact on my E3 pay at the time. But yeah, after that, like once I got out, like I had luckily started that transition or kind of that journey of getting a college degree in the military. So I had some college courses or college credits when I got out. I just didn't have a full degree.
Okay.
Um, and then for me, I got out. I finished my bachelor's in exercise science, and then went on to do my MBA, and then another master's in entrepreneurship after that. So using the VA program and the GI Bill, was able to complete uh, three different degrees. And like you had mentioned earlier, like had I done a lot of that with my tuition assistance, I probably could have gone like a doctorate or PhD route after. It definitely would have been time, but ran out of my GI Bill.
That's a lot of writing though too, man. Shit, that's a lot of writing. But yeah, I mean, Hey, you still made it happen, dude. You got all them degrees. You're doing your thing. You're at Google. You're here telling your story, changing people's lives. So I appreciate you coming on and taking some time off your off day, bringing the cat on the show, and just sharing your story, man. I'm looking forward to see where our relationship can go and what big things you can do in the future for yourself, your family, and the veteran community too. So I don't know if we missed anything or you want to tap on anything before we close it in, but I'll leave the ball in your court and check it up one last time.
Yeah, yeah. I guess just, and I think we touched on it a bit, but just parting advice for anyone, um, especially if you know you're going to get out of the military. Like, it's never too early to start planning. Like, even if like no one will do it, but even if it was your first day in the military, I'd already be thinking about, okay, what's next? Like, what's happening after this? But certainly during those last few years leading up to getting out of the military, start planning everything, do a gap analysis of where you want to go and where you're at now, so you can start filling in all of those voids, so you don't end up in a position like me where you're left, you're already out of the military and you're trying to figure things out and scrambling and all the stress that comes with the financial side and everything after that. So do as much prep work as you can in the military, and there's a ton of people out there that are willing to help you, and a lot of benefits, whether it's through the BA, veteran service organizations, or just everyday people. People want to help you. Just don't be afraid to reach out and never stop trying, because you never know how far you can go.
Dude, absolutely. I'm about to go Photoshop my bank account, add 9 zeros. So
There
I
you
hope
go.
you guys are about to do the same thing. And nah, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. Great story. Appreciate you sharing everything. And like I said, I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Stay connected. If you guys made it this far, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You guys got some golden tips, tricks. If you want to join Google, go get my man's book on Amazon. And I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. It's what is it? It's about to be the new year, so people like to plan for goals, but we don't have to wait till January 1st. Start doing it right now. I appreciate y'all listening in, and until next time, you guys have a blessed day. Take care.